Hey, what's going on, guys? Alex here, and we are back for another video. And this one's going to be an update on my first deal, which I did a video on that. I think it might have been a couple months ago. I'll probably put the link in the description, but this is an update on that first deal since it's finally closed out. So I finally got paid yesterday on it, and here's the check, by the way, for $27.50, which was the remaining. Not sure if you can see that, but it was the remaining, hopefully you can see that, the remaining amount that was owed. I had already collected $1,000 as an initial deposit, so there was $4,000 remaining, and that was left over, what was left over after the attorneys got paid too. So just to kind of go over it, here's what ended up happening. Tenant buyers actually broke up. So there was an unfortunate situation where they were a small family. They had a child or son who was disabled, and basically the boyfriend, they weren't married, moved out and kind of left the entire situation after 3 months. So that left the mom or the woman basically living there, unable to afford her payment each month because it required the both of them to be able to pay the amount. So fortunately, she wasn't able to afford it, and she's still there. She's moving out the end of this month, I believe, from what the owners are telling me. But it's an unfortunate situation. My goal is to create win-win-win situations, right? I want this to be a business where the seller benefits, the buyers benefit, and of course I benefit. Everyone wins in the end. So I'm not super excited, obviously, about this scenario, but obviously I have no control over people breaking up, so there's nothing I could do about that. But that's what happened. That's how this deal is ended up closing out. And here's the scenario. So they had put up $10,000 as an option deposit up front, in addition to first month's rent, which the seller kept. And I had collected $1,000 as a deposit, which means that they put up another $9,000 plus first month's rent with the attorney, right, at their office. So after the seller got paid their portion, in addition to first month's rent, this left $4,000 remaining in the attorney escrow account, which I was waiting on to receive from the seller, the assignment paperwork, and some other paperwork that they needed to sign prior to me being comfortable getting paid off this. With the deal basically falling apart, with the tenant buyers breaking up, it officially closed, so I was able to get paid. And the attorney fee in this scenario ended up being $18.45, which the tenant buyers had already contributed $5.95 towards. So my bill came out to $12.50, and I have the invoice right here. This could probably be a good tip for you. I would recommend finding an attorney who you don't have to pay up front, right? You want them to basically work for you for free until you close your first deal, and then they'll get paid, right? So this is a reasonable attorney fee, I think. Obviously in the future it's not going to be this high, but just from here's the laundry list of items, basically reviewing the initial letter of intent, which I had previously, preparing the lease closing documents, final changes to lease closing, meeting with me face-to-face for an hour and a half, postage, preparation of assignment docs, finalizing. There's just a laundry list of items there, and it adds up to only $18.45. And again, since this is the first time, usually it requires more time when it's your first deal working with an attorney, so this is probably going to be covered by the $5.95 processing fee, which I charge the tenant buyers for in the future. All right, so just keep in mind, you're probably going to end up paying $2,000 to your attorney fee, hopefully not up front, but in the end when you do a deal. Which is why I recommend you get a property under contract. Get a property under contract before you ever go to an attorney. Because the only way an attorney is going to work for you for free until you do a deal is if they know that you're someone who's competent to get this done, right? That's the only reason why they worked for me in the meantime, because I already had a property under contract. They figured I was competent enough to get it closed in the end, which eventually it did close in the end, and that's when they finally got paid. All right, so which means that the remaining profit, $4,000 minus this number, basically comes to $27.50, which is the check that I received today. Yesterday. and then when you add back the $1,000 I had already received, that brings it to a total profit of $3,750 for my first deal, which obviously I'm not upset about, right? So my minimum profit per deal is ideally $5,000, right? I expect to make at least $5,000 to $10,000. Considering it's my first deal, I'm just happy that we went through the process. I've had some lessons, right? I had some mistakes that I've made, and I'm able to learn from that. One of which is to always do your best to get the sellers to sign off regarding the assignment paperwork and some other paperwork that goes into it prior to the buyers definitely moving in, but even prior to them meeting with your attorney, right? So the steps in my process, so once I get a property under contract, obviously you market the home, you have buyers inquiring about the home, you set up showings, whether it's on Lockbox, whether it's through the owner, and have them fill out next step forms, right? Basically an application, have them pre-screened with Paul Ritter, get that back, get the yes or no from the seller, you both agree, and then at that point you set up a buyer's meeting, right, and meet face to face to collect $1,000 deposit and to go over a letter of intent with them, and then you bring them to the attorney. So I would say right after the buyer's meeting, right, once you get that $1,000 and the letter of intent signed from the buyers prior to them meeting with your attorney, I would recommend you have your attorney draft the assignment paperwork and all the paperwork that the seller is going to need to sign prior to the buyer meeting with the attorney. All right, that's going to avoid this scenario in the future where the buyers had already moved in, the sellers basically gave them the keys without letting me know, and without having them sign the appropriate paperwork for me to basically assign my rights out of the deal and feel comfortable getting paid off it. All right, so hopefully that makes sense. Again, you want to try to get the seller to sign off on that paperwork prior to the buyer meeting with your attorney, and obviously much prior before them moving in. All right, so that's a lesson learned there. And I already mentioned that you want to work with an attorney who's okay with getting paid after you close your first deal, right? So once the deal closes, then they'll earn their fees moving forward. They're going to get paid at the buyer signing, because the buyer is going to bring the $595 processing fee, which is basically to pay the attorney for their time and reviewing the documents, preparing the documents, and getting it signed. All right, so I believe that's all I had for you with this one. A couple of lessons there. Again, I'm not upset with the profit, lower than usual. Another reason why this was lower, I was expecting to earn $5,000, but that's only because this was a lower end home in my market. My market, I work with homes that are basically between $200,000 to $1.5 million. Now, at this stage, I'm focusing on homes that are between $200,000 and $600,000, because that's within FHA loan limits, right? That's going to bring the most amount of buyers. So this home was about $250,000 house, able to collect a $10,000 option deposit, and that's why the fee, I was expecting $5,000, but after the attorney fee, it ends up being $3,750. Most of the homes that have gotten under contract have been over that, so they've been between like $300, $400, $500, mid fives as a purchase price, which means my minimum fee is probably going to be closer to $10,000, because the higher the price range that you deal in, the higher your profit at the end of the day. All right, so I'm glad I'm able to get this first one out of the way. Now I can just move on to the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and hopefully this was helpful for you guys on your journey as well. Keep in mind, just to remind you, I do post live seller calls and buyer calls each week, and or buyer calls each week. So if you want to get access to those prior to them going private within 24 hours, I put those out, and then within 24 hours they go private. So be sure to hit the like button, be sure to subscribe, be sure to hit that bell at the end of the day, and I appreciate you guys watching, and look out for the next one.